Alright, I'm back here with a continuation as to my look at the Power Rangers from Mighty Morphin to In Space. And like I said, the reason Rocky, Aisha, and Adam were brought in during the second half of the second season was because of the fact that the characters Jason, Trini, and Zach had been chosen. That's right, they were the three teenagers chosen to represent Angel Grove in the World Peace Conference. And thus, like I said in part 1, we had the power transfer episode. Now, again, to reestablish what I said in part 1, the reason this happened, from what I understand, is there was a falling out between the three cast members, Austin, Trang, and Walter, because apparently it was a money issue. From what I understand, they wanted a little bit more money, which tells me that if the producers and writers could have afforded to give them a little bit more money, that Austin, Trang, and Walter would have stayed on board all the way towards the end of Mighty Morphin. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But that did not happen. Instead, because they couldn't afford to keep them on board, they replaced them with the characters of Rocky, Aisha, and Adam. Now, after that takes place, the rest of the season kind of follows suit as if nothing really changed, with the exception of the cast members. And to me, I'll be quite honest, this was actually a good change in some ways. Because, well, let's face it, if you were a fan of Power Rangers from the very first season, and in the second season you see someone like Tommy, who goes from being the Green Ranger to the White Ranger and suddenly becoming the leader, you might get a little bit mad yourself because you're so used to seeing someone like Austin's character, Jason, being the leader. So by having someone else like Rocky coming in being the new Red Ranger, it kind of makes more sense. And again, one of the other reasons people talk about that happened because that was one of the reasons that this change happened, I should say, was because of racial ethics. That's right. See, the reason the power transfer episode occurred was not only to write out finally the characters of Jason, Trini, and Zach from the series, but it was also done because a lot of people were complaining about the fact, from what I hear, that Zach's character, Walter Jones' character, who's African American, was the Black Ranger, and Trini, who's a Vietnamese girl's character, was the Yellow Ranger. So I guess due to racial ethics, which apparently was one of the main reasons this episode occurred, was why we got the new characters. Now again, like I said, not much happened afterwards, almost like nothing much changed, but I believe in a way this was a pretty good change. This was actually pretty good because it not only brought in new characters, but it also in a way solidified Tommy's character as the true leader of the Power Rangers. Because like I said, it kind of makes fans confused at the fact that if Tommy's the leader, then what does that make Jason? Because Jason was the leader for a long time, and Tommy was following his lead. Get what I'm saying? Anyway, getting to the third season of Mighty Morphin. The third season sort of starts out in a crossover episode, which serves as the season premiere of Mighty Morphin, but also serves as the pilot for another series by Saban that was coming to Fox called Masked Rider. But after this crossover occurs, we have the three-parter Ninja Quest. Now I know what you're going to say. Ninja Quest? Does this mean they're going to get the ninja powers? Now I know you're probably thinking and asking, didn't they get the ninja powers already? Well, let me explain that. You see, around this same time that the third season was happening, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers hit the big screen with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. Now by hitting the big screen with this movie, there was a lot of people kind of argued that it was not in continuity. Well, let me explain that. True, it was not in continuity. It was its own individual movie. basically what happened is that this was sort of like a movie that introduced the characters even more so to a wider audience. Kind of look at it this way. When Bryan Singer decided to make the X-Men movies, do you think he followed directly, did a direct live-action adaptation of the 1990s Fox animated cartoon? Because if he would have done that, characters like Rogue would have been older and been a teacher maybe at the school. You would have had Gambit in there. You would have had the whole litter, if you will. But no, instead he goes a complete run 80 and decides to make the first movie of the X-Men as an introductory film, kind of introduce the characters to the wider audience. And yes, take characters like Rogue and Iceman and make them students at the school. And also establish the fact that Rogue and Wolverine met up with each other before they joined the X-Men. Now, what does this have to do with Power Rangers? It's real simple. Again, it's about introducing the characters to a wider audience. For all the audience knows that's probably new to the show, new to the characters, new to the franchise, for all they know, the Ninja Zords were practically the second. The Ninja Powers and Zords were practically the second Zords and powers that they ever gotten. Nothing else. That's why it's a little bit more different. That's why it's not in continuity, but its own individual movie that takes place in the same timeline, but not in the continuity. Now, besides that, again, going back to what I said about the second season, we're also established to the fact that, again, with a new villain, the Rangers have to be upgraded to new powers and Zords. The new villain is Rita's brother, Rito. And I guess he's probably as powerful, if not more powerful, than Goldar and Scorpina. And Lord, we don't know what happened to Scorpina. But anyway, he proves to be so powerful that he ends up destroying the Thunder Zords, to the point that the Rangers have to travel to a distant planet, find a character named Ninjor, and get their ninja powers. Now this actually works out very well. But, again, as I said about the second season, the third season also had change being sensed in the air, if you know what I mean. In other words, you could sense change. And that change came in the form of Kat, played by Catherine Sutherland. Kat, at first, was a young girl that was basically brainwashed into helping Rita and given the special powers to morph herself into a normal cat. And, of course, she even fought the Rangers as a cat monster. That's right. Kat of the Power Rangers, who was the Pink Ranger, and I'll get into that in a minute, fought the Rangers as a cat monster. Even as a giant cat monster, she fought them. And here's the one thing that really got me that Linkara didn't point out. The fact that when she was the cat monster and she fought them as a giant cat monster, they destroyed her. She blew up. But again, I guess that's because maybe Rita saved her and still had use for her. But anyway, what does this have to do with her being the pink? What does this have to do with the Pink Ranger Kimberly? Well, it's real simple. Just like the previous actors before her, Amy Jo Johnson wanted a little bit more money. But there's also rumors going around that Amy Jo Johnson didn't want to have anything to do with the show anymore and wanted to respectively be written out of the show. So doing probably the more respectable thing of being asked to be written out, because she wanted to explore other things, the writers gave her a 10-episode story arc. Thus, not only establishing who Kat was, but also giving her giving Kimberly a 10-episode story arc that allowed us to say goodbye to her and thank her for all the memories, and also allow her to pass her power on to Kat. And I'll get into that when I come back.